Welcome back to another episode of the DailyFlip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going to be going through a story that shows how the path to destruction of principles is laid with the bricks of winning the next midterm. This article today comes from the National Review. Headline reads, "The GOP can't punt on healthcare." I'll give you a synopsis. Oh, maybe we should do some things that improve our socialized healthcare system. We'll go into it. We'll talk back and forth about it, but I want to know your opinions first. So in the comment section down there, tell me whether or not socialized healthcare has been beneficial to anybody you know, and if there are stories that you know that have actually helped individuals who are on these systems. I know there are a lot of those stories. I've heard some myself. I want you to throw them down there. I want to hear them before I fully discount it and say that it's outright terrible, because that's where we're going with this article. It's going to be a short one today, but I don't want to simply say that there are no benefits to it, that people aren't materially helped, because that is not fair. I will tell you in the long term, though, it only continues to lead to government overreach. That's my opinion, and I will have previously justified, and I will justify it again today. But I want to talk about the practicalities of these arguments. So let's go into a specific proposal. This is from our friends at National Review, who tend to be more mainstream conservative and not necessarily populist, not necessarily MAGA, but this is one of the most MAGA things I've heard for a long time. Quote, "Republicans would also be smart to build on a Trump administration rule from the first term that allowed employers to fund accounts, health reimbursement accounts or HRAs, for employees to buy and own their own coverage." Now, that doesn't sound too crazy. That seems like instead of having a system where your employer takes on a large percentage of the burden and you obviously take on some payments yourself, and you may have higher deductibles in some places, that sounds like a pretty free market oriented path. Hey, we're not going to be able to pick the best plan for you. Our plans are going to be limited here at this company. How about you go and find your own, and we'll just give you some money to do it? Seemed like a pretty genuine benefit. Well, what came before that? And here is where the author went. Quote, "This alone should reduce premiums for everybody else." What he's referring to here, quote, "It'd make more sense to have so-called reinsurance program, either at the federal level or in the states, to pay the cost of care for people with pre-existing conditions. This alone should reduce premiums for everyone else. The age ban imposed by Obamacare, mandating that young people can't pay too much less than old people, should be loosened. Obamacare taxes should be repealed, and the law should allow for genuine bare bones catastrophic plans for those who want one, and the states should be given as much leeway to innovate as possible." End quote. Now, if you're going to have it anywhere in the United States of America, the states sounds like an interesting place to have it. I am opposed to it overall, mainly because it is places like California and New York where these ideas have been born and raised and then brought to the national scale. Why does this sound terrible? Because not even within the last, within my lifetime, this has changed. This perspective has changed. Not even 15 years ago did the Republicans wholesale reject any such attempt to do so. They were actively trying to repeal Medicare. And now, instead of the argument being about ripping out Medicare, they have to fight Medicaid. Inversed. And they were trying to rip out Medicaid, and now they're fighting for Medicare, Obamacare. And guess what? It's only going to continue down this path. They're going to fight the most recent thing. They're going to reform the most recent thing. You have gentlemen like this who argue, in order to win, we can't simply step aside these issues. We can't simply say that they don't matter, because these benefits do help people, and we are going to have to make some reforms, but we're not going to get rid of it. That is how England, how the Conservatives, how the Tories continued down their path after losing after the war and installing a national healthcare system. That's how it never got repealed. We're 15 years on. We're almost at the point where an entire generation has grown up with Obamacare. They are almost at the point where, and actually we're actually beyond that if we're being really fair, because it wasn't just in 2016. There were the preambles of it in 2014 and even a little bit before that. But my point being in this particular argument is that we have a generation that's grown up with this as a benefit that they receive. if we go deeper than 20 years on this policy being on the books, it's almost never going to be repealed. The repealing of, or at least the stopping of these extra ACA credits is not enough. We have to full outright that's a strong word, repeal Obamacare. Now, I know I'm unpopular. Oh, Alex, you're so heartless. I could agree that it sounds very heartless. I will also tell you now, in England, I've brought this up multiple times, there are mandates as to what certain sizes for products can be, what certain types of chemicals can go into products. All those things make sense in that they're trying to keep their population healthy. You can have guidelines to advise against things in the United States, but you are actively limiting innovation. For all we know, the next gum product that is released actually has the secret for XYZ extremely good chemical bond that creates gumminess that we can use in 0G. You don't know where innovation is going to come from. You don't want to limit any innovation simply because of the cross compatibility of a whole bunch of knowledge. That's the true libertarian free market economic argument for it. And on the other end, not only the limiting of innovation is the problem, because some people don't care about that, they care about safety. The mechanism by which the governments can actively advocate for these sort of policies, can advocate for curtailing and limiting your rights, is that everybody in this society bears the burden of your bad mistakes, and therefore we have to change things. And that mentality on a healthcare front is apparent when they ban foods, but it is only likely to propagate because there are always bad decisions that you have to keep mitigating for in a safety society. It will lead to the stripping of your rights, the limiting of your freedom, and not to mention, like I said at the beginning, the limitation of innovation, which is the one thing that has brought us beyond the pale, the horizon of destruction that we face as a species. And we obviously don't have all the details when we were Neanderthals, but I'll tell you now, the fact that we're able to make weapons and tools is an innovation compared to trying to kill things and survive with our hands. And every step along the way, we have been creating new things, adapting to our circumstances, but also changing those circumstances around us, not simply because we are changing on a genetic level, but we are becoming smarter. We are making more tools. We are taking the inputs around us and making something that maybe you don't realize how much it could change. But 1,000 generations on, I can tell you now that first spear was a revolution. And I am very thankful that those people didn't have a government telling them, no, you can't use our flint that way. But maybe I'm a little bit too positist on this topic. I want to know your opinions. Throw them down in the comment section. If you want to read the entire article, it will be linked in the description below that like and subscribe button. Also down there, you can find the podcast on Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podvine, as well as the Twitter handle at Your Daily Flip, where I post links to these episodes on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the international news segment 6 and 6. It's 6 stories from around the world in 6 minutes or less. That comes out on Tuesday and Thursday. The link will also be at that Twitter handle. So, with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.